Come along now. He's waiting on you. Now, he likes his breakfast on time at 7 o'clock. At 2 p.m. sharp, he likes to play golf. At 5:30, his bath. At 6:45, he likes his tea and cigar. At 8:45, he likes his dinner. And I mean...
Excuse me, wait. You didn't say what he would want for dessert?
Well, I'm sure he'll let you know that.
Niggas wake up, it's dinner time. Yeah, turn up, pull up to the crib and a nigga on sit. Come fuck with a nigga, like a bang on the pussy like I'm blowing up crib. Fuck with a nigga.
Drove me to want to keep sharing my story was the fact that my silence made him more arrogant. We were all kind of afraid to come forward and talk about our stories. He knew that, so it kind of made his ego a little bigger to keep it going and going and going and going. And that's the reason he's gotten away with it, because we were all afraid.
I believe I can fly. I believe I can touch the sky. I think about it every night and day. Spread my wings and fly away.
My name is Geronda Pace, and I was in a relationship with R. Kelly when I was 16 years old.
I am Drea Kelly. I'm actually R. Kelly's ex-wife.
My full name is Kitty Jones. I am an ex-girlfriend of Robert Kelly.
My name is Angelo Clary. I'm the father of Azriel Clary. My daughter's currently still with R. Kelly.
It wasn't an easy decision to participate in this documentary simply because I have children. I wear the hat of the victim, but I also wear the hat of a mother whose father is the man who is the center of this storm. Robert was controlling from what I would wear, when you would wear it, who could speak to me. Like walking into the studio, literally the engineers had to look at their feet, and he would let them know, don't look at my wife, don't look her in her face, there's no reason for you. Look, he wouldn't let me speak to them.
You shouldn't wear that. Did anyone talk to you on the way here? Don't look guys in the eye, don't speak to them. Look down, turn your face against the wall.
Hummers used to be a thing that would trigger me because that was the first time that I really thought that man was going to kill me, and it was in the backseat of a Hummer. So it would be a thing sometimes when Hummers would come by, I would shake, I would get nervous, I couldn't breathe because I thought this Hummer is gonna eventually be my casket. Like, he's gonna kill me in the back of this Hummer.
The heated arguments was something that was a bit alarming. If I didn't want to do something, he would get extremely upset and it become heated. Then over time, it progressed to, okay, now I'm not going to yell at her anymore, I'm going to slap her. So he would just slap me, and that was to, I don't want. I can't talk about it. It's just too hard.
People think when you come forward, that's it. You're still dealing with living it. Every time you're describing incidents that happen, you're picturing yourself getting hit. You can feel that. You can smell his hand. You can remember the cologne that he was wearing that day. It's frightening.
From me sitting and spending time with all the victims, I can assume what's happening because their stories tell me what my daughter's going through, because she wouldn't be an exception to the rule. And I can only pray that she's not having to go through half of the things that I've already heard. To have a man to take your 17-year-old child, stripper, from that young adulthood to not spend 18 home, 19 home, 20, and now we going on 21 with our family, that makes no sense to me.
I believe he haven't faced any consequences because all of his victims are women of color. And we are always pushed to the back. You know, we're always put on the back burner. And this is something that we normally don't talk about within the Black community.
It's a protective thing, you know. I think overall for Black women to be protective over Black men, but who's protecting us? I don't even care about an apology at this point. I just, you know, turn your life over and get some help and admit that you've done these things and stop making us out to be, you know, groupies and gold diggers just to mask what you've done.
I would hope that people look at this documentary and know this isn't the R. Kelly witch hunt. This isn't about going out and attacking him. This is about supporting these women. Within that man, there is a monster. And you're so caught up in that celebrity that you're not realizing lives are in jeopardy.
At the end of the day, this guy that makes this great music is abusing women.
I felt special. I actually thought that I was his girlfriend. You know, I was living up there at that point. We were together all the time. You know, I had no reason to question that we weren't. Life in the studio was kind of boring for the most part. You really couldn't have much interaction other than, well, I couldn't have much interaction with anyone other than Robert.
Robert didn't allow pretty much anyone to speak to me. I'm just walking around, hey, everybody, hey. And then I'm just like, what's going on? Why aren't these people speaking back? Come to find out,
at that time, I didn't know what a runner was. But later on, I realized it was just, you know, the people that work at the studio, and they pretty much like run errands. My mom would call the studio. The runners would actually let Robert know that I had a phone call, and then he would let them know to like transfer their call to me. I do know that there were times where when she would get through and she'd be upset and saying she couldn't contact me and things like that. So it very well could have been times where she was calling and they weren't allowed to put me through. One time, one of his friends came to the studio and he's speaking to everyone, and just a normal reaction, you speak back. Rob would get upset and say, you're not supposed to speak to them. You don't speak to anybody. You just look straight forward. If they speak to you, you don't say anything. Pretty early on, he kind of introduced you to everything that he was into. It was instructed to call him daddy during sex, but it went from that to pretty much all the time he'd be daddy. The first time Robert had me do sexual acts with him and another female, he actually told me it was going to be his first time and he wanted to do it with me. He would say things like, well, you know, if you love me, you won't try to change me. You know, if you love me, you'll accept me how I am. You know, if you love me, you'll do these things for me. So those would be the little pep talks he would give me. Robert would film our sex acts sometimes. He would never ask me if it was okay to be filmed, but he never hid the camera or anything like that. Once we did the threesome, it became more frequent. Then he started introducing me to other young women.
Robert didn't allow pretty much anyone to speak to me. I'm just walking around, hey, everybody, hey. And then I'm just like, what's going on? Why aren't these people speaking back? Come to find out, they couldn't speak to me. He wouldn't let them. That's not me, because I'm gonna speak to everybody and anybody and whoever I wanna speak to. So when I learned that, I would go out of my way to speak to people just to tick him off, because I'm just like, look, you can't tell me what I can and cannot do. I'm not that girl. I'm not that chick. You can't stifle me. But I didn't know that a bomb was coming.
Woman is suing singer-songwriter R. Kelly for allegedly failing to disclose a sexually transmitted disease. She also accuses him of sexual battery.
After 2 months of phone calls, texting, and FaceTiming, she says R. Kelly flew her to New York to attend one of his shows and even paid for her hotel. The morning after the performance, she says Kelly visited her room.
He turns on all the lights and he's like, take off your clothes. And he says it, you know, with authority in his voice, not just, you know, he's demanding me to do this. And I didn't take off my clothes because why would I? Just wasn't ready. Sex isn't something, you know, I'm ready for it.
According to Rogers, she ultimately submitted to having sex and alleges Kelly recorded it on his iPad without her consent.
Did you want to have sex with him?
No. He has this type of like intimidation right off the bat, you know? So I was just waiting for it to be over.
What happens after that? What sort of conversation did you guys have?
He comes over and he starts like rubbing the side of my face. And he asked me how old I was. And I told him. And he's like, you know, if you're really, 16, that you can tell daddy, right? And he was like, you just look about 14, 15, or 16.
Rogers, who was 19 at the time, is suing R. Kelly for sexual battery and willfully, deliberately, and maliciously infecting her with herpes. And she claims Kelly mentally, sexually, and verbally abused her. She believes the now 51-year-old Kelly pursues teenage or underage girls and lures them into engaging in sex acts. In April, she filed a criminal complaint with the Dallas Police Department and says under their advisement, she recorded a phone call with Kelly, hoping he would admit to knowingly giving her an STD.
But what about my situation? I don't know about no situation. I don't never talk about nothing to nobody on phone. I don't do that. I don't care what the situation is.
Rogers claims Kelly also routinely locked her in a van.
The first time I was left in the car for a total of 8 hours that night, and the child lock was on the car.
I'm that star up in the sky.
Rogers believes Kelly was priming her to join a group of women she says he lives and travels with.
He goes on to tell me that he raises 5 women. Some of them have been with him for 15 years, and he basically was trying to make it seem like it was a family thing. He described these women as being his family. Then he goes on to tell me, you know what, I love you because you remind me of them.
She claims she had a brief conversation with at least one of those women, Joycelyn Savage.
My daughter's severely brainwashed.
In July of 2017, Savage's parents held a news conference asking authorities to remove their daughter from Kelly's home.
So we just want him to release her and let her go on with her life.
They believe Savage and several other girls were being controlled by Kelly and forced to perform sex acts as part of a cult. But Savage denied those claims to TMZ.
I'm in a happy place with my life, and I'm not being brainwashed.
My name is Lizette Martinez from Sunny Isles Beach, Florida. I was a typical teenager. I was at Aventura Mall with some girlfriends, and I see someone, a really tall guy, wearing sunglasses. So I said to my friend, oh, I think that's R. Kelly. And she's like, why would he be at the mall? And I said, no, that's him. And he heard me. And then he turned around and I was kind of starstruck. Here's this person in front of me that I think is like the world. And he walked up to me and gave me a hug, and I kind of I was kind of frozen. And then he said he was recording an album. I said, okay, nice to meet you, and he left. But then his bodyguard came back and handed me his phone number and said, R. Kelly would like you to call him. My best friend was with me, and she said, Liz, this is your big break. You better call, or I'm gonna call for you. For me, singing was always an outlet, and I planned on having a career. So I called, and he said, well, I'd like you to come to dinner with us. My girlfriend said, let's get your makeup and hair done now. This is it, you're gonna make it. We were so naive.
For Rogers, she hopes by coming forward, she can help put an end to Kelly's long history of alleged abuse.
What was it about him that kept you going back?
It's not like all the time he was just, this devious person. There's been times where he's, crying and he's telling me, about his children, about his ex-wife, comparing himself to Michael Jackson and how, how the media destroyed him, and he felt like that's what was going on in his life.
Why file the lawsuit?
I want it for girls like me who are gonna run into him in the future, and he's gonna do the exact same thing. But it could get worse, I chose to walk away. What about the ones who don't walk away?
And all the things I took her through, that shouldn't have lasted this long. Been a woman's better.